Yes guys, so the WWDC 2022 just ended, and finally we've seen all the new product that Apple's got to release. When I say all the new product, basically it's just the MacBook actually, and we've also got a new peak of iOS 16 and iPadOS 16 as well. I personally am generally excited for a couple of things which I will get to in the video. So first of all, let's kick this video off talking about the MacBook Air. So if you notice, the design has been changed compared to the original MacBook Air, which was debuted in 2008. This is actually the first time I'm actually considering, owning a MacBook Air because of that design. It's slightly thicker now. For me, I think the design is a nice move to go. If you did not like the M1 Max, you would not like the new Air because the new Air also comes with a notch, which is present on the top of the screen. However, I like the fact that it's got slimmer bezels now, and the fact that it's thicker again compared to the previous model. It's something that I find that I can really think about having. So if you're thinking about design wise, I think this is better, and if you want to purchase based on design because of the lightness, that's also a good thing because it's lighter compared to the previous gen of MacBook Pros, or even the last MacBook Pro that came out. Definitely Air is always lighter. So if it's something you'll be carrying in your bag, maybe to class or to work, for the design language it's quite good, and for the weight as well, it's lighter compared to some other random laptops. So speaking about the chips, actually the M2 is not necessarily better than the M1 Max or the M1 Pro. Actually, it's nowhere compared to the M1 Pro or M1 Max. So if any one of you watched the presentation or the keynote, Apple never compared the M2 to the M1 Max or M1 Pro. They only did comparison just to the M1. So that's just to tell you that the M2 is way, not really miles away, but it's lower than what you will get from the M1 Max. So basically, if you are someone who is doing really hard work, talking about video editing, content creator, you've got heavy files that you do work with, maybe 4K content or 8K. People be talking about 8K, but actually still, like I said, there is no platform out there that streams 8K or that streams in 8K or provide 8K footages. So yeah, so let's just not talk about 8K. Let's move back to 4K, which is almost the standard of today. So if you be working with 4K contents and heavy file, like I said, then you might consider getting the M1 Max or the M1 Pro. However, any of the M1 chip you get still is going to do the job, because since the introduction of the M1 chip, like even if you've got the 2 years ago version, it's still doing very, very good. So just to keep that in there, so everyone knows that the M2 is not necessarily better than the M1 Max, but it is better than the M1. What does it do? Obviously, since it's a newer chip, we expect it to perform better than the M1. So in terms of CPU on core, it's got up to 10 core, and the M1 maxes out at 8 core. So that's 2 core more in terms of processor, and you've got more power efficiency. Because what they're really trying to do is, for the past 2 years, every chip that they've come up with is always reflecting about power efficiency, so you can do more and spend less energy, which is actually a good thing. And all these things we talked about the M2, power efficiency and all that, still this machine does not make noise. So the M2 actually has got 8 core CPU, and it can max out up to 10 core CPU as well, and it's got up to 24 gigabytes of infinite memory, and the maximum you can get is a device with 2 terabytes. When you compare it to the M1 Pro and the M1 Max, which starts from 10 core, it got up to 32 core GPU and 8 terabytes. Oh my god, like the maximum, wow, 8 terabytes is way a lot compared to what you get in 2 terabytes. Now this is something, the M2 can give you up to 20 hours of battery life, but the M1 can give you up to 17 hours of battery life. In terms of battery life, I think the M2 is actually doing better. You've got 720p FaceTime and Full HD, and they said it's been updated, like you get 2 times resolution, but I have no idea why on the website it's still saying 720p. So it's not a Full HD. Why on the M1 Pro and the M1 Max, you can get full 1080p camera compared to what you're getting on the 720 from the M2. Studio quality, 3 mics on board on both the M2 and on the M1 Pro and the M1 Max. Touch ID on all the MacBook that you get, so even if you get the M2 Mac or if you get the M1, you've got Touch ID, which is placed on the top right corner of your keyboard. And when it comes to price, guys, this is something that I still don't understand. So for the M1 chip, actually, if you're buying an M1 Mac, which is almost 2 years old in the market, or which is basically 2 years old in the market, you're still paying higher. You're paying $100 to $200 more compared to when you're having the new one, which just debuted right now, which is the M2. I personally, I understand, because if you're getting the M2 and you get going for the Air, you would pay lesser, and the design is almost the same. Plus you've got the new futuristic, almost bezel-less, other than the notch is got. Yeah, I would just rather go for the M2 MacBook Air rather than going for the M1 MacBook Pro, because at this point the design is the same and the M2 can actually do the same job that the M1 MacBook Pro would do. So why not stick to the new design and, you know, just call it a bargain? So that's about the M2 chip. So let's talk about iOS. So iPadOS, since the release of iPad, especially the M1 chip, which was introduced to the iPad last year, I was expecting the iPadOS to change, because M1 from a laptop or from a MacBook to a tablet, I expected way much more from iPadOS 15, but to so many people out there who were also disappointed, the iPad did not get a lot of updates in terms of iPadOS. The multitasking was actually trash, in my opinion. Many people are moving to the iPad Pro because people are really trying to you know, replace their MacBook or replace their laptops with an iPad Pro, and so if you would not give them these full features to use, like, it's pretty annoying. So anyways, that being said, the new updates for the iPadOS 16 is going to be better than what we had last year. So finally you can do multitasking, which is really crazy. And then you can unsend messages now on iOS and iPadOS. So if you send a message before, you can just unsend, just like what you do on other messaging apps such as WhatsApp and Viber and other social app out there. The stage management is actually the multitasking feature which I was expecting last year with the release of iPadOS 15, but this year Apple has really made it way better. So with Stage Manager, which is the same thing that you basically find on your MacBook. So if you're working and you want to, like, see your screen, you want to see what's going on, you can, you know, close different tabs, open and see different tabs. If you want to switch tabs, you can switch tabs easily, and it's just a better way to multitask. And like I said, I was really disappointed from iPadOS 15 because to be honest, you know, the dual screen where you use multiple apps, it was really shit. I tried to use it, but I was never used to it because I never liked it. But now with the Stage Manager, which seems to be very good, from the demo obviously it seemed pretty good, and I believe when it's going to be released there will be improvements as well compared to what we've seen today. So that's that, which is really good. And then the free form, which gives you more room for you to, like, if you want to improvise or you want to keep notes, you can keep notes and put video. Oh my god, I think I did not make a video about this, but there was a day I was you know jotting down ideas of what I would like to do in my next video, and I wish that I could put a video on the file. So now it's like you can actually add a video. It's just like adding video to your notes. Yeah, that's about it, guys. So you can do a much more, and if you happen to have the M1 MacBook Pro, you would have some slight advantage over people who's got like the older version of Mac or the older version of iPad. Not too much, but you get slight advantage over them. But for now, the best part of the keynote was, to me, was the fact that you can do multitasking now. So that's just what I'm gonna say in this video, and I'll keep it as that. So now at least you can customize your own wallpaper and customize like the look of your iOS screen, which is pretty good. I'm looking forward to the M2 MacBook Air and probably getting rid of my MacBook Pro on there, and I'm looking forward as well to the new OS for iPadOS 16, which I really want to take advantage of the multitask, which will be fun because finally I can take advantage of this thing and Like, I actually got this to replace my MacBook, but it didn't do the job. It did not replace my MacBook, so I've kept it this long. And now, with, like I said, with the new OS that has been released, which will give me the full advantage for multitasking, I want to really see how that works. So if that plays out pretty good, maybe I might not need to buy the MacBook. But again, there is nothing like a computer. I believe in these days that we are, this can actually replace, but in some work that you need to do, you would always need a computer or a laptop or a MacBook. So anyways, like I said, I'm gonna see how that plays out when it's finally released. So if you've watched the video up to this point, guys, I'll say consider subscribing to the channel if you like what you've seen, and if you have any questions, leave your comment down below. I will be able to respond to them. And yeah, I'll be seeing you guys in the next one. Stay blessed.